why we're here. Welcome, Odds Couple, second hour, big first hour. Great to have your company on Cox Plate Day, wherever you may be around this wonderful country called Australia, the state of Victoria, the city of Melbourne. Wonderful to have your company. Hour two, Ryan Ingram joined us earlier on from Sportsbet to give his thoughts on Cox Plate Day and the big 3-year-old race up in Sydney over the 2,000 metres. Mark Walker, the trainer of Imperatriz for the Tiaco Group over in New Zealand. He said the mare's absolutely flying and they expect big things from her again at the Valley today at Group 1 level in the Manikato.
Talking about Imperatriz, $3.50 on the special, Sportsbet special, to win by 2 lengths, the Manikato. 2+ lengths.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I took a bit of that. Sorry, Scoop.
That's okay.
Sportsbet.
Yep. Chris Nelson will be joining us shortly.
Oh, I've got a winner today.
I'm going to give him a bit of a rev up, Chris. I reckon
I've got a chips-in job.
He's been a bit off the mark the last couple of weeks, so he's getting a rev up off me this morning. But talking of rev ups, the stewards gave Mark Zahra a rev up after last week's Caulfield Cup, and he was fined $50,000, given a 7-day suspension for excessive use of the whip. What were your thoughts, David?
The thing is, you know what? My thoughts about the whip is just it shouldn't be there. It's disgusting.
Shouldn't have a whip.
Shouldn't have the whip rule. No, of course you need a whip, right? Well, perfect example was when Melbourne got, when he got suspended on Griff when that horse took flight. He took fright and you need the. Imagine he didn't have a whip on that. That's why you need it. Now, they've got it wrong. Zahra, he rode outside of the law is the law now. The rules are rules. So yes, a $50,000 fine. Yes, because if it was a Caulfield Cup, if it was a maiden at sale, probably gets fined $500. Right, that's the thing. Right, but they've got it wrong. Like it's the same rule for 1,000-metre races as for a 3,200-metre race, and the perception is for these anti-racing people. That's what it is. That's what it's been brought in for, and it's all the perception. Now it's unlimited from the 100, so five strikes until the 100, and then unlimited from the 100 to the winning post when the horses is rolling. I just think that they've got it wrong. I think it should be sort of. You could use up to, say, 10 strikes before the 100 and then put the stick away. And then the perceptions are, when they cut to the news, you're only seeing the last 50, 100 metres and the jocks have got the whip away, right? And then they go, they're not using it, which is good, right? But these horses, these stayers, like Melbourne Cup's coming up soon, these stayers need momentum and they need to build into it. Like, once they're rolling, you think Bauer needed the whip the last 100 metres? He was there and rolling, wasn't he, in that Melbourne Cup? He needed it there at the 400, 500 at the top of the straight to get him going and to roll into it. I reckon they've got it backwards, the unlimited, because jockeys are... The old days, I understand the rules. You look back at the old days and you probably cringe what we used to do, right? So it's implemented for a good thing, I suppose, but I think they've just got it wrong, and these fines are outrageous.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, look, I'm a racing person and I love racing, but I like to present the other side of the argument because I was at the races in Geelong a few months ago and a jockey walked past me. I was with my 5-year-old and a jockey walked past and she said, "Dad, what's that thing under his arm?" And I was about to say, well, it's a whip. And I thought, well, she's 5, so what's she going to relate a whip to straight away? She's going to say, well, why would you have a whip? Why do you need a whip when you're riding a horse? So, and these 5-year-olds are going to be the next group of people who follow racing, right?
Yeah, well, educate them then. Why are they using
Well, that's an important part, educating them. But naturally, and I'm not saying that just because it's called a whip or termed a whip,
persuader.
It is the wrong. It might be the wrong term, but it stuck with me that she saw a jockey and she thought straight away, well, what's that thing
it is
under the
from
jockey's
a 5-year-old,
arm? Yeah, but they're the next group of people, and she'll continue to grow up with the sport, and they're the ones who are going to take over our passion for the sport. The other thing I think mostly is this racing embarrasses itself in comparison to other sports because when you've got rules and if you break rules in sport, you either lose what you've won or you get a suspension and you get disqualified. That on the same weekend, Lewis Hamilton's Formula One car the seat was 1 millimetre out of position, or had worn 1 millimetre, and he was removed from second position to disqualified from the race.
1 millimetre.
For 1 millimetre. Then in the Caulfield Cup, Mark Zahra broke the rules. We tangibly know that he broke the rules. And the second horse, the runner-up, the jockey, played within the rules, yet Mark Zahra and the winning horse get to keep the win, and the second horse, who plays within the rules, does not get anything
it's
out
so
of
hard
it.
to take the prize money off the owner and the trainer. They've done nothing wrong. That's
But it's
the
a
thing.
team. It's
and
a
you
team.
can't tell me how much a whip actually improves a horse. Some horses don't like it.
Does the jockey lose the money?
The mechanic in the Formula One race.
Mm.
The driver did. Lewis Hamilton did nothing wrong.
Hamilton did nothing wrong.
Does do you lose if you ride a horse that ends up with a positive? Do you lose your money?
Yes. Yep.
Well, that's the same.
You lose the race.
That's the same.
Which wasn't your fault.
Yeah. All the owners, I suppose.
It's the same.
Yeah.
So, I just think the sport, to my eye, the sport embarrasses itself because you're allowed to break the rules, which you can say is cheating. Now, it's a pretty extreme term to use, but you can say cheat, but you don't actually lose the race. Whereas in other sports, if you break the rules, you're done for.
I'd like to, if they put it to the jockeys, if they said, all right, you're allowed 10 strikes up until the 100 metres, then 1 or 2 strikes from the 100 to the winning post, right? I wonder if most of them would agree to it. Because that's when you need to see all these. Yeah, how often do you see them whaling away the last 100 metres? It's prior to that.
What difference to a horse finishing a race does the whip make?
So that's the thing. So there's only been one protest upheld, and that was the dead heat, because there's no definitive margin on how much a horse improves with the whip.
Would that help if we had a definitive margin? If we said...
We don't know. You don't know.
But if we just come up with one. Put all the
and
effort
that's why,
in.
because one was a dead heat, and that's the Black Caviar, the daughter of Black Caviar, wasn't it, right?
At Flemington.
Flemington 6 months ago.
It's the only way I think this can be solved.
Just come up with a margin.
The rule was brought in from a welfare perspective and a look.
But
I understand that completely.
I'd like to educate people with the whip, though, because the whip doesn't even hurt the horses now.
You can't say that.
As I said, it's perception.
I don't know you'll ever win that.
So, because if you say that to me now, I say you shouldn't have a whip. Because if it's not making any difference,
they're still fueling it, and the noise is there. That's the thing.
But if it's not making any difference to the horse's performance, you then shouldn't have. Maybe you should have a crop, and you should never be able to, do a full. And you can hit a horse, tap a horse down the shoulder.
Yeah. You need to carry
so
one.
You can keep guiding.
You carry one in track work.
So, but you can't. I just don't see how we can get this right without there being a definitive distance of what using the whip excessively gives you the advantage of.
Yeah.
There has to be a distance. If there's not a distance, the rule shouldn't be there.
Correct.
If it's there for welfare, make a decision whether you have the whips or you don't have the whips. If you're going to have a whip, use it a different way.
Yeah.
But to think that a horse could be beaten, half neck, and the jockey get fined for breaking the rules, and the stewards don't protest, the owners don't protest, but the rule's there. You say, okay, we have to be definitive about this. There's millions and millions of dollars up for grabs, and there's the welfare of the horses. So let's get this right. If we are serious about the whip rule, you must have a definitive distance that if four strikes over the limit is a neck.
Yeah.
6
half
is
a length or something.
Your long neck.
Yeah.
8 is a half length. And until you do that, we're going to continue to have this debate, because at the moment, the welfare issue, what the stewards have done or racing has done, and talk about shooting themselves in the foot, to what happened last Saturday, is the whip's not required. Because it means nothing other than the look.
Yeah.
It means nothing other than the look. So unless you now put a distance on excessive strikes, get rid of the rule, get rid of the whip, put a crop in their hands, but someone make a decision to get this right, because they are just going to have this. They're going to have a continuation of shooting themselves in the foot, because no one has the has the courage to make a decision.
Thing is, the only time I know if a jockey's overused the whip is when you read it in the stewards report. You can't tell me after the Caulfield Cup the other day, straight after the race,
of course not.
Zara's used it 3 more times extra. Like,
of course not.
No one knows how many times the jockey's hit it. It's only until it's policed by the stewards.
And careless riding is careless riding, and
but we can see careless riding. But you can say, that jock's got to get time.
You can see using the whip too, and so careless riding.
I used to pull the stick and not hit him.
You got 3 months or 6 months or whatever it might be. Use of the whip is, yes, you've broken the rules, but we're going to have a financial penalty for you. But that guy who's run second, and it will happen in a big race. And I don't know when that happens in a Melbourne Cup and there's a nose in it and you've got $6 million up for grabs. I hate to think what's going to happen.
Yeah, so if that happened with Bauer,
no one's had the guts to say this is the way the rule will be policed.
Yeah.
Not saying it's right, but this is the way it's policed. And that's the same for the owners, the jockeys, the trainers, the stewards. Everyone knows where they stand.
Now, if you threw a protest in, the Bart horse that Blake Shin won, beat your horse Bauer, and he and Corey rode within the rules, and Blake didn't.
You have to.
Because that was that much, the margin was nearly a dead heat.
Yep.
You protest, it would have been dismissed. How would you feel today? Still, you'd be saying you got ripped off, wouldn't you?
Yeah. What you need, you can't have grey area. You have to.
That's the thing.
You have to be black or white, and that's where it takes someone within the administration of racing to say this is now the rule for everyone. It is the same for everyone. You now know exactly where you stand. So it takes the debate out for the Sale Maiden, the Bendigo benchmark 64, the Warrnambool 0 to 58. Takes all the debate out, guys. This is now the rule. 4 strikes, long head.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly, because it's the only way to make it as clear as possible, absolute clarity. If, whatever the margin was last week without a fight, where there was a neck and Mark Zara hit the horse, 4 times too many, and that equates to over a neck, then it gets upheld and the other horse wins. Because I think at the end of the day, if you stay within the rules and you play within the rules versus someone who breaks the rules, whether you say it's deliberate or inadvertent, it doesn't matter. There's been a million athletes and teams who have inadvertently broken the rules and they've still paid the price.
Like people say, well, the jockey should know how many times they've hit. Well, not really. They've got that much going on. It's a dangerous job.
I don't really cop that. I reckon you jockeys would be able to.
You'd know a little bit. Like when I used to ride track work, right?
I reckon I'd
do my times.
Give yourself more credit.
But if the trainer told me to run the last 400, right, and then get off and say what time you ran, I wouldn't really know. I'd have a ballpark figure just due to the fact that I'm too busy listening to the horse's wind. I'm too busy seeing if the horse extends, other things rather than counting. A bit the same with the whip. You're not counting these whips, and then you're saying, "Am I at the 100-metre mark yet?" That's the thing.
I reckon if the result of the race depended on it, you'd be good enough to count.
But I still can't work out how, like, sprinters don't need the whip. And you see that with Imperatriz. I hope you never give her one crack and break the track record. These sprinters don't need it. The stayers do. And that's the thing. And you've got the same amount of whip rules for a 1,000-metre race or even an 800-metre race around Ipswich than you do over a 3,200-metre or a 4,500 Jericho. Like, I mean, it's not right. And these stayers need to build momentum.
The industry's saying we need to make the image of our sport better.
It's perception. That's all it is.
But mate, when you're competing in a really tough world, perception is matters.
Yeah, I know.
It's so important for all of us, everyone to make their living out of the game the way they want to. That perception's so important, and it needs direction. It needs strong direction to say this is now the way this works. Or take the whip away completely. But, we've probably had 5 years debate on the whip.
Yeah.
It's time someone stood up and did something about it. And I think the actual add-on to this is for one of the few times in Australian racing history we can get every state to agree to it and make an actual rule around this country for the good of the sport. I think the runoff from that, the positive feel of that within the younger generation of this country will bring a lot more people, young people, to racing than what we're going to get at the minute.
Well, you know what would help? Because of the padded whips that we use, these people educate themselves about it.